I walked into the kind of house where sound behaves differently, where even the walls seem trained to keep secrets, and then a bright red backpack skidded across polished stone like a warning flare, Lego pieces pinging into baseboards, while three 8-year-old boys staged a miniature rebellion in designer pajamas. People had told me no, Nanny lasted here. Not 3 weeks, not 3 days. And I rang the bell anyway, because somebody had to, because sometimes the wreckage you see is exactly the place your skill set belongs. He opened the door, looking like a man who could buy an island and still feel stranded on it. Jaw tight, sleeves rolled, the name that made vendors jump suddenly, not worth much to 3 small critics behind him. This was Mason Hale, resort founder, widower father, trying to hold a house up with meetings and willpower, and I did the only thing that ever works with kids who are tired of being managed. I crouched to their eye level and said the quiet part out loud. I'm not going to promise we'll be a happy family by Tuesday. I don't know you yet. I need a job, your dad needs help. Both things can be true. The oldest, Asher, gave me the look kids learn when adults sell them slogans, the middle one. Cole peeked from behind a leather chair like a fox, and the youngest Theo sniffled hard, then told me he was born last, and it didn't seem fair, so I told him that made him the tiebreaker, and he almost smiled, which is how the door cracked open. In the study, Mason tried to use his business voice, and it came out just tired. Full disclosure, he said. Last Nanny quit because they put glue in her coffee. Did it work? I asked, and he actually laughed. She spit and packed in under an hour. Then your kids aren't cruel, I said. They're creative and hurting. And he had that flicker people get when someone finally names the thing. They've been tiptoeing around, I told him. I'd been a school counselor before a budget axe, that most of my work was with kids carrying invisible backpacks. Grief and panic and guilt zipped in tight. I told him I'm a single mom, and stability for Mia matters more than my pride. I did not tell him the part I never lead with, that once upon a time my last name unlocked rooms it eventually locked me out of, because that history makes some people curious in all the wrong ways. When we stepped back into the living room, the boys were gone, but a fortress had appeared, chairs and blankets and broom handles turned into a city with hidden entrances. She's gone, a voice declared from inside. Maybe she ran, another said, or called the cops, the third whispered. I sat cross-legged on the floor and clapped slow like I'd just walked into a master class. This is a superior build, I said. Your structural integrity is impressive, and your entrance points are invisible. But there's sag in the west corridor, and I can teach you a knot that doesn't come undone, you know. Knots? Cole asked, curiosity cracking his shell. My dad was a longshoreman, I said, and the fort let me in. That afternoon, the house turned into a studio where grief learned to work with its hands. We mapped Carter City on sticky notes, then renamed it Hale Harbor. Because they liked the sound, we posted a rule at every doorway, knock for permission. Because even brave kids need boundaries that feel like choices, cleanup was construction backwards. I told them, and we made it a race, and from the study doorway, Mason watched like winter was losing its argument with spring. You could see hope try on his face again. Not big and cinematic, just there. Routines grew, bones, pancakes, and became negotiations. Park runs turned into scooter recon. Mia started visiting after school with a backpack of stickers and survival, and the boys who kept their orbit tight let her in without ceremony. One night after meatloaf, Theo asked if Mia could stay for dinner tomorrow. Asher nodded like a chairman moving a motion. Cole slid over to make room with the kind of casual kindness that means everything. And the house shifted, not in money, but in mood. The first threat came soft, disguised as concern. His mother called while I was teaching Theo a hitch knot. And I only heard the silence after. She doesn't belong in our world, Mason said. looking at the rope, not at me, and I didn't debate pedigree with a grieving son of a socialite. I just said, I belong with kids in pain. That's the only world I care about. And he nodded like a man who wanted to believe and knew how heavy family advice can be when it's wrapped in legacy. A few days later, the advice showed up in a navy sheath dress and pearls. Eleanor Hale didn't wait for the invitation, because people used to. Yes, rarely do in the study. She laid a manila folder out like a chessboard. Ms. Ruiz, she said, or, do you prefer the last name you used in Miami? And heat bloomed behind my ears while she fanned photographs of a life I don't live. Me in a gown I don't own. My then-husband, Damien, smiling a smile that belonged on magazine covers, a news clipping about the accident on Biscayne Bay, another about irregularities at his fund, that awful media scramble where rumor gets invited to sit at the grown-up table after the funeral. His family needed a villain who wasn't him. And I fit, she said. I'd turned down 2 private schools and a counseling center that would pay double what Mason did. Curious, isn't it? And she slid the folder toward her son so the doubts could climb out. You know what I mean? The kind of doubt that spreads like ivy if you let it. I told the truth. I own I didn't come here to climb. I came to work. If you want certainty, you want a statue, and statues don't teach kids how to breathe. When memories get loud, she didn't slam a door. She didn't have to. That's not how power moves. Mason didn't sleep. Neither did I. Ceilings look different when you're waiting for them to fall in the morning. He asked for the whole story, and I gave it to him. The marriage, the money that complicated nothing, and then complicated everything. The fast way, doors shut. When a headline steals your name the way I shrank my biography, to protect Mia from questions she never asked for. I told him if he felt even 1% unsafe with me around his sons, I would go without a scene, do no harm, has been my rule since Mia was born. He swallowed like believing me required the kind of courage that doesn't photograph well. Then came a glossy distraction with impeccable timing. Sloane Whitaker, the family friend, who had once been and almost returned to town like a press release. Eleanor orchestrated a dinner that felt like a test from the moment the door clicked. The boys said, "Thank you for expensive gifts," because they have manners, but Asher kept glancing at the pantry, like maybe I'd walk out with oven mitts and an exit plan. "Where's Miss Jenna?" Theo asked, and the room paused just enough for everyone to feel it. After the guests left, the house felt too quiet, the way rooms do after laughter. Remembers the bills on Monday, the email arrived from school, incident involving Mia. I found her on a bench outside the principal's office, fists in her eyes. "Some girls called me the maid's kid," she said, like she'd swallowed glass. They said, "I only go here because you work for a rich man." Inside, a smaller voice that wasn't small at all rose up. "You don't get to call her that. She's our sister Theo again." Consequences were filed. The bureaucratic tango between discipline and context played out. We signed what they printed, and I took home 2 kids who thought they'd failed when all they'd done was love loud. That night, Mason sat beside me in the living room with the soft lamp that makes everyone look braver and said, "I believe you, not because of any piece of paper, because of who my boys are when you're here." And the room held that sentence like a steady light. Morning backyard dew on shoes, the kind of Seattle sky that might choose rain or glory. By noon, he walked out like a man who had spent all night picking a road and was ready to walk it. "I choose this," he said, "not the brand that looks good in an annual report. This life, this noise, this learning. I love you and I love Mia, and if you'll say yes, we build a family that isn't perfect and isn't pretending I made a noise that was half laugh, half cry, and 3 blonde heads popped up behind the lilac like a cartoon, called it Cole, crowed. Asher smirked like he'd known since the hitch knot. Theo hugged Mia so hard she squeaked, "Yeah, that happened." And if a house can exhale, ours did. 2 years is short for history and long for healing. We sold the glass and steel echo box and bought a weathered craftsman 5 blocks from the water, where gulls complain at dawn and neighbors water ferns like it's a vocation. The boys learned to bait hooks and apologize without a script. Mia hung a poster that says, "Be kind on purpose," and lived it, baby. Iris arrived on a gray Tuesday with opinions about cilantro. Eleanor cried when she held her and asked me to teach her arroz con pollo pearls and apron. People surprise you when love pulls rank. It isn't a beau life, never is the resort business. Wobbled last spring, and a columnist wrote a headline designed for shares about the CEO who married the nanny. Mason read it once and used it as a coaster. I banged pots too loud, and then reminded myself no happy kitchen was ever built. Worrying about strangers on the internet. And just when the past felt content to sit where it belongs, a letter arrived from Miami. Damien's brother with an offer to settle and retract and clean the record. If Mia added their last name to hers, and if we stood on a gala stage so donors could applaud a reconciliation, they had nothing to do with strings attached to a check that would fix paper while rewriting a child. I slid the letter in a drawer and made dinner. Like wood. Doesn't remember heat. Mason said he'd back. Whatever I chose, Eleanor said. Forgiveness is not performance art. Sloane mailed a holiday card with beautiful cursive from a life that fits her fine. The boys asked if galas have cotton candy. Mia said her name doesn't need permission. Iris threw green beans. So did love win? Yes, in all the ways that count in laughter, that drowns out old echoes in kids who build forts, now to welcome. Not to hide, but victory is a daily verb, not a trophy. And the ending. Maybe that belongs to you. Do we go to the gala and accept a check with strings? Do we sign a name that once shoved us to the curb? Do we turn our backs on people who hurt us when there's a chance to rewrite the record? For Mia's future, tell me what justice looks like. When class and image and memory all want to vote. Tell me who is right. The grandmother who feared for a legacy. The father who chose a messy love, the child who fought for a sister, the woman who refused to be a headline. If you've lived through judgment or built a family by choice, drop your take in the comments. Call me out or cheer me on. What would you do with that letter? Would you change a name for peace or keep it for truth? Like the story, share it. If it found you on a hard day, subscribe if you believe in choosing love on purpose. And tell me your version so we don't have to carry these invisible backpacks alone.